Namaskar and Jai Hind. I'm Gaurav Sawant. India was able to sort out Pakistan in Operation Sindoor. But is there a bigger challenge for India? What's happening on the other side of the China wall? How strong is the Chinese army, the PLA, People's Liberation Army? We've seen the Chinese equipment. Is that actually the best that China has to offer? Because in Op Sindoor, Indian assessment was that the Chinese equipment isn't as good as they claimed it would be. Chale to chand tak, nahi to raat tak. And who better than Lt Gen Raj Shukla, former army commander, RTRAC, to tell us more about what's happening on the other side of the Chinese wall, of the China wall. Gen Shukla, welcome on India Today.
So thank you, Gaurav. और सबसे पहले तो जो आपका नया पॉडकास्ट है इसके आगाज़ पर आपको शुभकामनाएं.
धन्यवाद sir.
And I hope you do well and all the best. Good luck.
Thank you very much, sir. With God's grace and your good wishes, hopefully we will. But how well is Xi Jinping doing?
Yes. So, China, let's look at it this way. If you just go back a couple of years, 2015, 2016 was when the strategic competition between China and US started intensifying. And it did seem for a while that the China story would exceed the American rejuvenation. So I'll just give you 2 points, 2-3 points to say why I say that. Look at DeepSeek and QN. It has leveled the AI race. The Americans thought they were 10 to 12 years ahead of China. And suddenly DeepSeek and AI. So this, led one to think that China was not a copycat story. There was something deep, innovation, this, that. Let's look at the military balance. In the first island chain, on Admiral Paparo's admission, so American admission, the Chinese ratio of combatant ships, China to USA is 6.8:1.
Wow.
Over the last
That's
year,
how fast they're building their ships.
and see what they're doing. The escalations have increased 300% over last year. 2017, they employed 2 brigades. This year, they employed 42 brigades.
Wow. The
Amphibious ships which are exercising, 2/3 of their fleet is exercising. So, it starts from 10%, 20%, 2/3. Next time it may just be the attack. So Paparo has been warning that these are no longer exercises, they are rehearsals for attack. So ek taraf to ye hai. And all kinds of stuff when it comes to their hardware. But I have been observing this, and now it's over the South China Morning Post and everywhere else. Apart from the other issues of real estate collapse, unemployment, inflation, growth being as low as 3%, comes this bad news of Xi being cornered politically and his PLA letting him down.
So that's a very big point you're making, and I want to pick up on this thread. Xi Jinping is called chairman of everything. But is that chairman of everything truly being cornered? And if I pick up one aspect, real estate has been written about extensively, the real estate collapse. Why is the PLA, and is the PLA collapsing with reports of between 70 to 100 generals being purged in 10 years? That's a huge number. What would you make of it?
So, dekho, PLA is the personal project of Xi. If you go back 10-15 years, Xi realized that if China has to grow, the PLA was outdated, technologically a laggard. So he invested in the PLA. And people say that the PLA has undergone the most massive military modernization in the history of mankind. History of mankind. Now it has to be understood. Xi, 10-12 years back, used to spend 6 days in the artillery school, 4 days in their aviation academy. So he nursed it. He made mind-boggling changes, getting Naval Air Force officers into the Central Military Commission, appointing some of his best minds to the Rocket Force, Strategic Support Force. See, Strategic Support Force jab raise hui 10 saal pehle, it was the world's first effort to AI enable the military. He was thinking years and years ahead. But what has happened of late, he constantly got reports of three things. One is corruption. One is taking money for promotions. This is a deep malaise in the PLA. You pay your way through promotions. And the third was that after 10 years of investments, over the last 2 years, when he's going and asking these people that, are you ready for the Taiwan contingency? All kinds of excuses. So 70 to 100 generals have either been sacked or they have left to their suicide for 3-4 reasons. Corruption, for incompetence, and for not being ready for the Taiwan contingency. Now just see, hundreds, not a small number. And now his political rivals, Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao and all, they've been saying, what is happening to your PLA? These are all your choices. They were not our choices. You personally picked them. And 2 defense ministers get sacked and Rocket Force General, ye wo. And then what happened of late, the day I tweeted, the week before that, उसके जो सबसे नज़दीकी 2 generals थे, I put their names in that tweet.
He Hung Jun and He Widong.
Yeah, so they are all he who something. But the point is, his closest generals committed suicide or they were executed. और उसके 5 और जो करीबी हैं, they were arrested. One of them is commander, Northern Theatre Command. It's like our Western Army commander committing suicide. Eastern Army commander. This sets me to think that while their hardware may be good, अब उसमें भी question mark लग गए
मैं आपसे यही पूछने वाला था, is their hardware actually good? But we'll come to that question. So please complete your point.
But their software is definitely in trouble. अगर आपकी 100 leads, top generals are caught up in all this, and therefore these politicians have chosen their moment to corner him on this. और जो उनके जो सेंट्रल मिलिट्री कमीशन का दूसरा जो वाइस चेयरमैन है ना,
जी,
what's his name? Zhang Zuzia. Zhang Zuzia was not from the Z camp, but now he's controlling the shots. And these 5 and 2 have been accused of plotting against Zhang Zuzia. So for the first time in the PLA, he's being cornered. And now Hu Jintao, whom he humiliated a year back or something.
2022. In fact, वो तस्वीरें मैं अपने दर्शकों को दिखाऊंगा. I want our viewers to look at those images. How unceremoniously a former president was lifted and evicted from the meeting.
He's got back and he's got support. Wen Jiabao has got support. So, देखो यहाँ कहना मुश्किल है. I'm not saying that there are visible cracks, but there are certainly signs of something not being right.
So let's take this.
Just one more point I want to make. See why this Taiwan is so important to him. Our previous presidents देखिए. So Deng said hide and bide. Xi said loud and proud. Our moment and we'll go loud and proud. And when he was asked कि भाई आप Jack Ma के पीछे पड़ रहे हो, ये पीछे पड़ रहे हो, he said enough of wealth. Now the time has come to convert that wealth into power.
Into strength, yeah.
Taiwan, PLA. तो देखो आसार 2 तरीके के हैं. पपारो तो बोल रहा है यार
अटैक कर देगा ये ताइवान पर.
Hardware, ये वो. I'll give you one piece of statistics. USA today has just 7 days of missiles, munitions to fight in Taiwan. China is churning out 10,000 cruise missiles a week. A week. तो हार्डवेयर में तो आप देखो अमेरिकन एडमिशन से लग रहा है दैट द चाइनीज आर जिपिंग पास्ट. बट ये जो सॉफ्टवेयर फेलियर ये सब, फिर आपने सिंदूर की बात कही.
I'll come to Sindoor in just a moment, sir, and I'm very keen to talk about Sindoor because Sindoor में जिस तरह से Chinese equipment के बारे में one section of the media or one section of the experts, they're hailing the J-10Cs and the PL-15s, and the others are saying वही चले तो चांद तक नहीं तो रात तक. But I want to stay for a moment on He Hungjun and He Widong, the CMC vice president. If the Central Military Commission vice chairman is being driven to commit suicide, what does that indicate?
I'm telling you, deeply worrying signs, and therefore I'm wondering why the Indian media has not picked this up.
India Today did.
India Today did, yes, thank you. And thank you for highlighting this in the podcast. Now it needs deeper investigation. Achha, offline we were talking of intelligence. I'll give you an interesting tidbit about intelligence. DeepSeek. It shocked the world. You ask any chap in the computer space, IT space, American, he will tell you it didn't come as a surprise. We were seeing them coming to that. Who was taken by surprise? The national security community. If the American national security community couldn't spot deep sea, what about us? They are our neighbor.
True.
We should be looking at these things. So you just see how weak intelligence across national security communities is. If you didn't spot DeepSeek, the Americans didn't. The lesson is what, Gaurav, that we have to step up our game in all these issues.
Oh,
Intelligence and all.
Absolutely.
And the professionals know about it. तो जो हमारे इंट वगैरह है ये या तो प्रोफेशनल से बात नहीं करता है या डेप्थ नहीं है हमारे एनालिसिस में. All these things are important.
Now, if there was a revolt by former premier and reformist Wen Jiabao, what is your assessment of Hu Jintao? October 2022 was when he was ushered out, and rather unceremoniously. Is he now, as former president, and in China they anyway say that elders are respected. She didn't respect the elders. Is he on a sticky wicket there?
So देखो, I mean, the Chinese system is opaque, but in the Chinese system, if you go back to the visuals, dispute क्या थी? जो Politburo का composition था, उसमें he was assured that there will be certain names. Now when he wants to pick that up to see कि वो है कि नहीं, you notice कि कुछ लोग किनारे से आए और जी ने इशारा किया और उसको
उठा के लेकर गए.
So it was a breach of promise. So they may be a communist country, but they also have deals. Deals are to be honored. अभी जो पिछले 2 महीने में वेन जियाओ और इस दोनों ने ये उठाया है कि why did you violate the deal? You backstabbed us. अब इनकी जो internal gatherings होती हैं, I'm told that there is very open speech making. So while they may be communists, internally they speak. And internally they also have stature, they have backers. Both Wen Jiabao and all, I think 1 month back there were a series of meetings where they hounded Xi on him, and the words they used was, let us get us back to transparency, rule of law,
and
by Chinese standards.
And collective leadership, and not individual leadership.
You picked a very good point, because the Chinese political apex had concluded that we should no longer have personalities like Mao, because cultural revolution, they killed millions and all that. So leadership should be collective. So in the previous eras of Jiang Zemin and all, while there was a face, it was collective. Xi changed that, became too powerful. It seems that his power is receding now. And मैंने सुना है, तो rumor है या पता नहीं क्या है, it has to combine with some serious ailments he's going through. So
apparently some brain...
some surgery.
Yeah.
So, everything has come together. Health, PLA. But what will hurt him most is the PLA, because he really invested in the PLA and it has let him down, at least in terms of corruption and all these things.
So, let's for a moment focus on PLA. There are analysts who are now saying, and you've been tracking PLA very closely, it's very brittle. It may look strong, but एक धक्का और दो और वो टूटेगी. Is that your assessment?
See, my assessment of PLA is like this. If you go by their capacities, investments, आज मैं आपको 2 example देता हूँ. Chinese manufacturing, civilian capacities in manufacturing in 2002 were half of that of USA, civil. By 2022, their manufacturing capacities, civil, become twice of that of USA. In consequence, their military-industrial complex today is 5 to 6 times more efficient than USA. तो ये जो चीज़ें हैं ना, 10,000 cruise missiles a week, manufacturing capacities, J-36, वो million drone swarms are being swarmed along the LAC, 5G, military robotics. तो इसमें तो लगता है ये बहुत आगे निकल रहे हैं. But part of it is cognitive warfare. जैसे आप देखो, the true chaps who have churned out that drone mothership is the Ukrainians, because they've worked on it for 3 years. जैसे ही यूक्रेन ने किया, इन्होंने एक AI enabled फोटो निकाली और लगा दिया हर जगह. And the whole world is thinking they have got a drone mother. It's just a beginning in AI enabled. So कुछ ये है. Their air force is suspect because they really haven't, they've never been tested in an air war. अभी जो सिंदूर में हुआ है, J10, J17, they don't seem to have done too well. So I say that they have some capacities. Some of it is social media fluff. What is happening in their generalship is very welcome news. But you can't plan on the basis that they will crumble. So you have to plan on facts.
Yes.
And then if they crumble, good for us.
नहीं, हम उन्हें क्या ज़्यादा आंकते हैं, जैसे पाकिस्तान को भी क्या हमने ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग आंका. आई जस्ट डिड वी असेस दैट पाकिस्तानीज आर स्ट्रॉन्गर दैन दे वर, द मैनर इन विच दे फॉट ऑन डे 1 and the manner in which they just collapsed on May 9-10. Let's look at the military hardware of the Pakistanis, courtesy China. J-10C fighter jets 2021, 36 aircraft. HQ-9 SAM system 2019, 1. HQ-9 SAM missiles 70 since 2019. The CH-4A, the medium altitude long endurance drone since 2019, 10. The PLC-181 155 mm SPG self-propelled gun 2018 onwards, 236. Wing-Lung 2 armed drones 48. Wing-Lung 1 armed drone since 2019, 48. The radars, and you've studied radars so extensively. They're 150 air searcher radar, the YLC-2A, the HQ-7 SAM system, and I have this entire list, sir. YLC-2, YLC-6, YLC-18 gap filler radars, the HQ-9B, HQ-16, HQ-7 Shorads, FM-80, FM-90, FN-6 man portable air defense system. ये सब पाकिस्तान के पास है. तो फिर हमारी मिसाइलें कैसे उनके 11 एयर बेसिस को ध्वस्त कर पाई या 9 टेरर बेसिस को ध्वस्त कर पाई?
तो देखो, जो आपने इतनी लंबी लिस्ट पढ़ी है ना,
बड़ी मेहनत की सर,
बहुत बढ़िया. बट आई सिंप्लीफाई इट फॉर यू. यू नेम वन इक्विपमेंट ऑन द पाक इन्वेंट्री विच इज नॉट चाइनीज.
80% Chinese.
90%.
90% Chinese.
When I was commanding the division in Baramulla, जो ऑपोजिट इनके इंजीनियर्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाते थे, उसमें अगर 4 पाकिस्तानी होते थे तो 3 ही होते थे. वो BRI के बहाने they are making their military bridges, infra. It doesn't surprise me one bit. Pakistan army is nothing but Chinese army. In manpower, in equipment, what they have done of late is Turkey से थोड़ा कुछ आने लगा है. वो drones वोन्स. इस बार क्या हुआ? Erdogan was, see, we missed this. Erdogan came to Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia. He is positioning himself as
the new caliph.
And caliph with Western proficiencies. So NATO army, NATO military, पैसा भी है, but Islamic world. And when he visited these 3 countries, he did major military deals. Our president catch it in Pakistan. मेरे समझ में क्या हुआ है?
The Corvette and I think the UAVs.
Drones. इस बार क्या हुआ कि he just had come 2 months back. तो वो सामान जो है पहुंचा नहीं. मेरा assessment ये है. So Pakistan is China and Turkey. That shouldn't surprise us one bit. अभी देखो क्या हुआ. These people who are questioning us, कि ये छुपाया हमने, वो छुपाया, कुछ नहीं छुपाया. क्या छुपाया? पहली रात को some losses have occurred. Bharti said it, CDSS said it. We will not quantify it because you don't quantify. You tell me what did you lose? बिल्कुल आर्ग्यूमेंट है. लॉसेस होंगे, बट एक अगर बॉक्सिंग बाउट है जिसमें 5 राउंड हैं, चलिए पहली रात आपने मेरे को कुछ मारा, मैंने आपको कुछ मारा, भाई साहब चौथी रात में तो यू वर नेकेड, वल्नरेबल, एक्सपोज्ड. भुलारी से लेके स्कर्दू तक. नूर खान, यार गौरव, when we were in my career, we hit these bases only in war games. We used to wonder कब मौका मिलेगा. हमेशा हमको बोला था नॉट पंजाब, व्हाट यू सेइंग ना.
करेक्ट.
इस बार यार रावलपिंडी मारा, वो क्या है, रायविंड मारा. आई कमांडेड 10 कोर, मेरे ऑपोजिट 30 कोर थी बाबलपुर में. ये जो पूरी जो मरकज है ना, इट इज नॉट अ मरकज, इट इज अ ट्रेनिंग एकेडमी with swimming pool, obstacle course, mine training ring. When
mine training
with conference halls, classrooms, it will put an IIM to shame. When
God.
Abhinandan was not being released,
yes,
there was a thought of firing BrahMos in the last. General Rawat had come to my headquarters and we had discussed whether we can engage it. But Abhinandan got released. इस बार हमने उसको मारा है. This is dream. अच्छा, we were told that if you touch Punjab, he will not spare you. What did he do? What did he do? और 10th morning में, when Noor Khan base was hit, and on reliable information I can tell you, their command and control complex was hit. जो पूरा air power को वो करती है. That's why the DGMO came scurrying for cover, for a truce. Achha, if your J10 17s were so good, where were they on the second, third and fourth night? Tell me, where was your fancy HQ9? So it was a complete collapse of the Air Force. Any sharp military mind will know it. Complete collapse. I'm reiterating. वो तो field
marshal बन गया.
वो उस पे आते हैं. The reason is, we used to talk of limited air superiority. Here they had lost air control. Can you imagine your skies are bare? Bare. They know it because they actually prided themselves on the Fizaya. And we must grant it, Fizaya held on the first night.
Fizaya held
on the first night.
The supremacy or superiority or the pride of the Pakistan Air Force.
Ab dekho, the other thing is, since you've raised it, we are very poor in strategic communications. When whatever losses he inflicted, on the first night, Aurangzeb was doing a podcast with air chiefs and all and selling it to the world. What has happened in our case, since we were a little late?
Why?
That we should correct. What happened that by the time we sent out our messages, the narrative in the West had hardened.
But the West, why does the West dislike us? But I'll come to that question in just a moment because, that's a topic I really want to talk on.
Yes, we'll talk about it.
But we will digress.
But we must come to the West. I want to make some points about the West.
Okay. Since you mentioned Chinese equipment, the Indian Air Force, okay, day one, he had his J-10Cs and he has his JF-17s, which incidentally China doesn't use.
We have about first round, मैं आपको 3 मारता हूँ. चलिए आपने 4 मान गया मैं
पाकिस्तान नहीं बनूंगा. I'm not playing with you.
If I'm Pakistan, I hit you 4 times. But boss, on the 5th day, you were lying knocked down.
True.
So when a chap is knocked down, do you say मैंने पहले राउंड में 4 मुक्के मारे थे?
True.
मारे होंगे. So the wise military analyst should ask this. Now I come to this West. I mean, I really question their IQ. One is for this. Will you go by the outcomes or this clerical question? पहला के मुक्का किसने मारा? बचपना है यार ये. Are you serious military analysts? The other thing I question them is this nuclear theology. See, I'll give you an argument. I was a lieutenant colonel when Parakram happened.
2002.
And I was in Ratnuchak, right next to Kaluchak.
Kaluchak.
Okay. Now what happens, you remember?
Oh, terrible, I covered it.
This generation will not know, but
you must describe it from a soldier's point of view.
Hitting parliament was as bad as Pahalgam. The country was shocked. General Vij writes in his book कि 1 kilometer army headquarters से they were told that parliament is under siege. उस दिन तो हम बच गए. We could have lost some very political personalities. Now when you are mobilized and you are threatening them with war, इनका गमशन देखो. कालूचक में 34 आदमियों को मारते हैं. Soldiers, sleeping soldiers, women, children,
including
military,
a child. Including a child.
Could there be a graver provocation? और देखो हमने क्या किया. Prime Minister Vajpayee said, आर पार की लड़ाई. I was a lieutenant colonel. We thought 3 days. And nothing happens. What happens? Now you just understand this and then get the West. सोचे हुए तरीके से हमीद गुल. दूसरा कौन है? किदवाई. These nuclear weapons are not nuclear, क्या? Museum pieces. वो एक कहानी. They are not to be, we will use them. Now look at this. What word shall I use for them? The juvenile West. The innocent West. Washington gets scandalized by this.
Complicit West.
या तो complicit या बेवकूफ. अच्छा सुनो. तो US embassy को बोलते हैं खाली करो. Western embassies यहाँ खाली करने थे लोग. Businesses exist. And their media, our media, lectures the Indian state and says you are irresponsible. You are threatening war in a nuclearized subcontinent. You are being irresponsible. And we say, oh, we are being irresponsible. Good. Strategic restraint. And now let me tell you, there's somebody whom I respect. See in Kaluchak what happens, how they wave the nuclear rattle. This is very important to understand. Just one thing. He writes in the book that the purpose of Parakram was to contain terrorism without conflict. Just decode it for me. What does it mean? With a chap like Pakistan, do they understand any language? Then he says that the purpose of Parakram was to assuage the feelings, hurt feelings of the Indians. तो मतलब उसको आप फुसला रहे हैं क्या? And the third point is extremely important. He says, my most taxing challenge as a defense minister was to teach restraint to my service chiefs.
Imagine.
Now, are service chiefs meant to exercise restraint or are they meant to war fight? Now you see this West Paki narrative is bought by the West. We also buy it. In the army, strategic restraint became a matter of highbrow intellect. So if you were a well-read soldier, you said strategic restraint. If I am a clever Pakistani, मैं बोलूँगा ये अजीब उल्लू है यार, इनको मारे जाओ और ये strategic restraint.
Sir,
this narrative is very interesting. Such was the mood and frustration of those times that Arun Shore made that famous thing. He said, when he was asked, he said, it is not an eye for an eye, not a tooth for a tooth, for one eye, both the eyes, for a tooth, the whole jaw.
Absolutely.
You have to understand the background.
Which is what has happened right now.
Second point, another luminary, let's say, made fun of the instrument of force. Very interestingly, he said, ये जो आपकी Air Force है ना, General साहब, ये ग्वालियर से उड़ती है, zoom zoom करके बिना कोई हमला किए चुपचाप अंबाला में लैंड करती है.
But he's right.
He was right. And then there was professional advice. KPS Gill. Gill said, you will never win the war on terror by chasing terrorists or merely chasing terrorists, which is what we have done. You will win it by overwhelming the adversary.
Absolutely.
अभी आप इसकी अगर पृष्ठभूमि समझें, you will realize how Operation Sindoor is so significant because it has converted the mood, the frustration, the despair, even the wisdom of those times into a new strategic reality. So I say my conclusion about Operation Sindoor is two. It has underlined the utility of force. We have understood what force can do. And two, it has called this schoolboy nuclear bluff on terror. Schoolboy nuclear bluff. And here I again get my Western counterparts. Tell me, what is this nuclear theology? Nuclear weapons are to be used when you are threatened existentially. जब आपका अस्तित्व खतरे में हो. यहाँ these smartos were using the rattle to launch go on a nuclear terror rampage. Can this be any logic in this? Should they have questioned the logic? Or said, no, nuclearized subcontinent. This is the nonsense. Now, what has the government, Prime Minister Modi and the current dispensation done? They have said, dekho boss, terror is no longer a low-cost option. Karna, soch lo. You do it, Noor Khan will be hit. This is what has changed.
And we'll do a separate podcast on it because mere to dil ko na, I was anchored through the night, both when the terror bases were hit and subsequently when 11, Pakistan says more than 11 of their air bases and radar stations were hit. And then when I met some of the soldiers who'd hit them, including Pasroor and Chunyan, and वो तो आर्मी ने जबरदस्त ऑपरेशन आर्मी ने भी किया. POJK में तो आर्मी did a great job. So while Air Force walks away with the cake and doing a stellar job.
No, good. Air Force has done a stellar job. But I'm told of the 9 targets, 7 were hit by the army.
And I met those soldiers who hit some of those targets.
Army is always magnanimous, doesn't take credit.
But जब मैंने बात की उन soldiers से और कुछ वो videos देखे, I went down on ground and met them. The Pakistani counterattack, incidentally, when they used their high-speed missiles, they also tried to target some vital assets, vital points. They were intercepted, fortunately. But again, that Chinese system, the Chinese missiles didn't work. So even if they're building, as you said, 10,000 missiles, if those missiles are intercepted.
So therefore, you tell me, the J10, J7. अच्छा कल मैंने पढ़ा कि Myanmari insurgents have brought down a
J17. But J17, China is not flying. वो तो पाकिस्तान बनाता है, तो पाकिस्तान तो वैसे ही 2 नंबर का माल बनाता है.
नहीं तो हमारे लिए बड़ी अच्छी बात है. या तो उनका हार्डवेयर खराब था, या तो चाइनीज हार्डवेयर खराब है, या पाकिस्तान के पायलट बेवकूफ हैं. for both is good news for us. But see, now what have they done? This is what we have to see. Now, what is the new Trinity? 40J35A, stealth. HQ19, not HQ9, 19. KJ500, new AD system. अब भाई पेपर पे तो ये बड़ा इंप्रेसिव लगता है. इसकी असलियत क्या है अगली लड़ाई में पता लगेगा. But you can't plan on this basis. Of course, you have to plan. At least the Indian military is told that you must never underestimate your adversary.
True.
So I will say don't underestimate them. But एक दो चीजें हमको देखनी है. The military component of the power differential with China is $450 billion. $450 billion. Now there are limits to valor. So the Indian state has to decide, can we spend more? Should we spend more? And here I will draw your attention, 2 हफ्ते पहले, 2 young Indian economists, so not the old school ones, they wrote a very good article saying that this guns versus growth is a false debate, one, but more interestingly, they said investments in defense, quoting American peer review journals and all, have a fiscal multiplier close to 2. This is economics now. Economists saying that. So they are saying that it is a misnomer, and you must get him on your show, Aditya, somebody. वो कहता है कि अगर आप ₹1 खर्च करें डिफेंस में, it adds ₹1 to your GDP.
Oh, absolutely.
What have I been told all these years? Defense
is a wastage of money.
So we must pick these lies. And I'm saying revisit the metrics of your economic statecraft और कुछ खर्च बढ़ाओ, because my favorite line, deterrence may be costly, but wars are costlier.
Yeah.
Ask the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
So all these issues need to be revisited. So I'm saying there is very good news, 100 generals getting sacked, JF-17 not working, J-10 not working, but you can't base your planning on these parameters.
But one, they're being sacked. 2, they're committing, or they're being driven to committing suicide or dying by suicide, or they're being killed either by those close to Xi or those opposed to Xi. So, for example, you were talking about, He Hung-jun, and pardon my pronunciation, the deputy chief of CMC died by suicide within a year of appointment. Predecessor, Admiral Miao Hua, he too was purged. And he was seen as someone who was loyal to Xi Jinping. So when someone loyal to Xi Jinping is being removed and his promotion had been fast-tracked, what does that indicate?
So, that is all part of Chinese palace intrigues. And एक China का ही तो वो phrase है that to scare the lion, kick the monkey.
Yeah.
So if you want to get at Z, kick his lieutenants. So all this is going on over there. But the serious point is that you see what we call as politico-military convergence. No strategic military system can be built on palace intrigues. There has to be trust between the CDS and the Prime Minister, between the CDS and the Raksha Mantri, which leads to good decisions, cohesion. So we have all that advantage. Our biggest advantage, people don't realize, is the professional military under political control.
Absolutely.
Pakistan is an unprofessional military bucking political control. और ये तो palace intrigues में फंसे हुए हैं. If I and you are 2 generals, this time I'll make you the Chinese general. I hope you'll accept it. The fact is, अगर हम में trust ही नहीं है, तो हम क्या करेंगे आगे? So these are all good signs.
So I also want to now come to from generals to their ministers. November 2024, there were reports that quoted intelligence officials saying Admiral Dong Jun, China's minister, was being probed for corruption, their defense minister. Then when she took power in 2012, he promoted all these 31st Army Group generals. He brought his people to the top. Li Shangfu, removed as defense minister, October 2023. The statement made, severely polluting military procurement system. So their generals are corrupt, their ministers are corrupt.
So exactly, you see, when Xi came to power, he came to power on the slogan of not only the flies but also the tigers. मतलब जो corruption में जो छोटी मक्खियाँ थीं उनको नहीं, also the tigers. And he said, I will get my men. and I will take out corruption. It was a major plank with him. अब लोग कह रहे हैं साहब जिनको आप लाए
वही corrupt है.
वही करप्ट है, वो तो पहले से भी है. So what is your political locus standi? What was this whole mission about flies and tigers? So he's being questioned on multiple fronts. और साथ में जैसे आपने बताया real estate ये वो. So these are certainly bad days for the Chinese. But let me tell you one more thing, one last thing. एक चाइना में किताब, one Western guy wrote a book on China, The Bubble That Never Pops. And he says कि ये जो चाइना डाउनफॉल थ्योरी है इसकी शुरुआत 1980 से
That is true.
और अभी तक हुआ नहीं. तो I may also be victim of one of those. But of late I am seeing serious strains in it. But the point is you have to keep a very close watch on PLA because Chinese, I am very clear, चाइना का एक सिद्धांत है, one tiger on a hill. ये जो हिमालय की पहाड़ी है ना, इस पे एक आदमी बचेगा, या तो चीन या हम. They are going to take this fight to the finish.
So what is their priority, Taiwan or India? Or these, as they say that these five fingers they want Tibet, they want Ladakh, they want Arunachal Pradesh, Nepal, Bhutan. They say they are the five fingers and Tibet is the palm. Do they actually, no, but would they focus on this or would they focus on Taiwan?
See, we must focus on one Chinese saying, which loosely translated is like this. It says, the first time I slap you, it is my fault. The second time I slap you, it is yours.
Oh, absolutely.
So we have been slapped once in 62.
Yes.
Now, I make this point. For the first time in history, you have the world's number 1 and number 3 economies in PPP terms. First time in history. Growing in close proximity. And now no Himalayas. Himalayas have been breached by technology. आपने Tibet की बात की. No buffer like Tibet. Your geostrategic trajectories are bound to clash. The only way to keep this intersect peaceful is by investing in deterrence and not hoping that nothing will happen, because that hope did what it did to us in 1962 when Mr. Nehru was told and he said, no, MEA will take care, and
he wanted to disband the army at one point of time.
All that. And he died a broken man. अब देखो जो आपने ये बात पूछी ना ये ताइवान वाली. So I was an army commander during Galwan. So 2 years before Galwan, or 1 year, when all this build-up was taking place in the WTC, each time we asked, कि भाई, what is this build-up being taken? We were told, no. The word was, no, his primary orientation is Taiwan. तो हमने कहा साहब प्राइमरी ओरिएंटेशन अगर ताइवान है तो यहाँ क्यों
बिल्डअप हो रहा है?
Then we were told, these agreements, जनरल साहब ऐसे थोड़ी ना ब्रीच होते हैं. They can't be breached.
But they'd already been breached in 2017 in Dolam.
Yes, but here too he breached them with impunity. Impunity. So Baba, never trust all this. Primary orientation, Taiwan. This is all that highbrow intellect. Primary orientation sounds very good. And they have never been breached, General. They are breached. So I'm saying the only thing will works with the Chinese is deterrence. After Galwan, when we have hit them at many places, and you would know that, it's never been made public, they were driven to do what they did in Kazan. So the lesson with China is deterrence. Invest in deterrence and not hope.
Yeah.
And see now one more thing about China. There is no evidence, but I am very clear. What is China doing to us? It is saying, देखो, one tiger on a hill, इनसे हमारा मुकाबला है. When the Prime Minister was in Kazan, you see the readout. The readout said, multipolar world, but quiet on Asia. India says multipolar world, multipolar Asia. They keep quiet on that. They are very clear it is one tiger on a hill. अब देखो वो क्या कर रहे हैं. इस तरफ उन्होंने कहा good. ये एक बेवकूफ़ है पाकिस्तान, इसको लड़ा दो. सब इक्विपमेंट दे दो. Test your equipment laboratories with him. So here you have terror, Pakistan and Turkey and China. Terror, if you've been following Gaurav, I think last week or before that, at least I saw it for the first time, the formation of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Kashmir. So you now have TTA, TTP, TTK. I'm telling you at this point they will be plotting something. I have no doubt. इनको यहाँ उलझा दो. What is worse, and I've been saying this for the last 1 or 2 months, we have a new national security reality in Bangladesh.
In Bangladesh.
You just
absolutely.
see few things. Look at this whole business. The ISI chief has visited 3 to 4 times. वकर जमान who's pro India, उसके बरखिलाफ इन्होंने NSA को खड़ा कर दिया और उनके जो QMG है
वो तो वैसे भी रेडिकल इस्लामिस्ट टाइप है, वो आईएसआई से मिलकर आया है.
कितने आपने टेररिस्ट छोड़े हैं, जमात, इस्लामिस्ट्स. Look what they are doing to the minorities, Hindus. Rabindranath Tagore का वो घर शर जला, यही है वो. Suddenly this guy starts seeing the landlockedness of the 7 states. Lal Monirhat Air Base. The Bangladesh inventory is 70 to 75 Chinese.
Yeah.
The Rakhine corridor will get weaponized for terror, fueled by drug. I am reasonably certain the next terror attack will come from Bangladesh.
From
What
east.
will you do?
Yeah.
तो इधर देखिए, Pakistan, Bangladesh, China. Instabilities in Myanmar a problem. Now if I'm China और मैंने इंडिया को यहीं उलझा दिया है, अब मैं WTC में जो करना है मैं करता हूँ. And then there is this 400 ship navy, which is not going to patrol its coastlines.
No.
So we have to realize that we are in a very grim strategic environment.
When you look at the situation on ground in Op Sindoor, you gave the example that you hit the monkey and scare the tiger. There's also that other saying that you slaughter the chicken to scare the monkey. If we've slaughtered the chicken in Op Sindoor, does the monkey get the signal? Because how many air bases do they have in occupied Tibet? If we can take down 11 bases in Pakistan, how many bases, God forbid, should the balloon go up, can be taken down, and does he have the air defense system? I mean, I'm only speculating as a total civilian layman to ask you.
No, very, very, very apt question. So see, I look at it.
And if you can take down his access to Tibet.
So my answer to that is this, that I don't think that we have a threat from the LAC. My answer. We have rebalanced sufficient troops, meg, armor, logistics, force multipliers. Khatra wo nahi.
Which he thinks is aggressive.
He may think so, but we know what we are doing. The only thing where he's beating us is in persistent surveillance. AI, drones, swarms, rocket force, strategic support force. Look at his nuclear posture. So in this technologically driven domains, we are behind. So मेरी एक theory है that now that you have got a very robust posture along the LAC and your startups have grown for 10 years now, they are ripe. You use some of these startups to give technology to the LAC. The posture plus the technology is good enough to provide fail-proof deterrence along the LAC only. As far as the larger China challenge is concerned, in technology, AI, all that stuff, he's good. You have to acknowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
He's leading in quantum. We must get into what I call detente, hide and bide.
Yeah.
Invest in that. So fail-proof deterrence along the LAC, make sure that doesn't fall. And that can be done. And the larger challenge, we have to invest and build. So I make this point, at the end of it. When I was young, we were told कि इंडिया का strategic outlook क्या है? हमारा outlook है a peaceful external environment, a benign internal environment, and focus on the growth of your 143 crore citizenry. Good idea, first class, except it's not happening. This is in the real world. India has to learn to plot its rise through multiple crisis, conflict and confrontations. Sindoor is only the beginning. And हम क्या करेंगे? अभी सिंदूर हुआ, 2-3 महीने आप बात करेंगे, फिर आप भी बात करना छोड़ देंगे, फिर वो the debates will go. I'm saying not episodic nourishment of the military, but enduring capacities.
And through made in India equipment.
And as far as possible, certainly, and with critical operational
Naturally.
gaps, you will have to do with that. So it is entirely doable. And we should not do what Pakistan is doing. We should focus on our growth, focus on technology, technological renaissance. We have talent.
Absolutely.
This is our moment. We should just be careful on the national security front. Otherwise, this journey to Amrit Kal is not going to be a smooth ride. But can we get to a Viksit Bharat? I have no doubt. Provided we are little cautious about our national security, about these investments. But there are challenges. I'm also of the view that our strategic environment may be as grim, if not grimmer, than Israel. You tell me who has these kind of threats.
True.
So we really have to pick up our game in national security. That's the larger point.
And that's exactly why the conversations are very interesting. There, a lot of those conversations are happening.
Yes.
For example, it's a people-driven initiative that you must invest in your Kaveri engine so that you have your domestic fighter jet engine. So you, in the interim, you may have to buy an engine, whether you get it from France or Russia for your fighter jets. But then we're also focusing on made in
And
India.
now let's be honest.
And now let's be honest
See,
about
there is a
it.
lovely line in Hindi which says, "Sehmati ka sahas or sehmati ka vivek." Both. So you took the engine. So let me say, I'm making this point. AMCA is not happening with these 2.5 lakh engineers.
True.
If you want to get AMCA, pay them crores. So flexible recruitment models for our HAL and DRDO. यार स्टार्टअप्स जो हैं दिल्ली में वो क्वांटम शॉन्टम में दे आर हायरिंग 10 करोड़ के इंजीनियर्स द कंपटीशन इज डिफरेंट लेट्स टेक टेक्नोलॉजी अनदर इशू आई गिव यू वन पीस ऑफ डेटा 2003 to 2007 in all critical emerging technologies there are 65 of them tabled by ASPI, Australian Strategic Policy Institute. The sole superpower USA leads in 60 out of 65. But then China does its 1,000 talents plan, diaspora strategy. By 2019, China is leading in 57 out of 65. Look at the dramatic inversion in technology. So can India not pick 10 technologies and say कि भाई 10 साल में हम 10 में आगे होंगे? ये हमारी खामियां हैं. अगर हम ये करने लगे, and one thing I'll say, technological innovation has picked up, but it's not going to happen unless we deregulate. ये जो IFA system है, it has to change. It is meant for a different era, or it will kill innovation. It will kill energy and enterprise.
Financial advisor रक्षा मंत्रालय में जो होता है वो वाला system you're saying has to go.
And I'm appealing to them कि आप नया system बना दीजिए, but you
I
make
agree.
it. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
For the benefit of this podcast, do you think the Chinese army is at war with itself? Is that what is happening between various gangs and groups and generals within the Chinese army? Because I was reading somewhere, so there's a Shanxi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, there's a Shanxi gang, there's a Fujian clique, and they are going after each other.
See, the way the Chinese system works is that each of their generals have a political mentor. So they align. So there will be people in Xi's gang, there will be people in Hu Jintao's gang, and hope that your guy comes to power. You see, unlike us, which is a very professional military, we don't get politically mentored. Their system is like that. Or
So there is a political commissioner from the party, because their army is also, it belongs to the party and not to the country.
You take your gamble. So if I'm a bright general, I will choose यार ये गौरव के पीछे लगना है या उनके पीछे लगना है. You make a choice. And that's the way it happens.
No, but can an army like that, and your professional assessment, if an army where generals are going after each other, and you've seen them up close and personal, you saw what happened in Dolam in 2017, you've seen what happened in 67 at Nathula, at Sumdorongchu through 1980s and 90s, you've seen them through and through. Are they a professional war-fighting army, or do they only believe in either scaring you or using, threatening to use their rockets and missiles? Because when you also start using your rockets and missiles, then it's who fights better on day 1 and day 4, and are they using elements within our country to weaken us mentally? Because I've seen so many people in our own country who would like those intellectual generals. I'll talk about intellectual journalists, so-called, and analysts who would talk about strategic restraint when it comes to Pakistan, or peddle Pakistan's agenda, the Aman Ki Ashawalas, that Mombatti Brigade of Wagah, and those who say Chinese army is way too strong, you cannot deal with them, so what's the harm if you give up more territory to them?
I mean, that's a specious argument. Why should you give up territory? See, if you see them over the last 6, 7, 8 years, in any of these physical contests, we have hammered them. So physically, we are stronger. We are more hardy than them. There are many stories of
But
these.
then they say कि हमारे पास तो robots आके लड़ेंगे, and we'll have robots who will fight in high altitude.
So we'll come to that. So that is one part of it. when it comes to professionalism, for all the reasons that I've said, we are superior. See, उनके यहाँ basic problem है, a CO of a battalion is also supervised by a political commissar. Just put it in India. If an infantry battalion is supervised by some member of Congress or somebody, how will that thing work? So those are inherent problems in their military. So to at least a professional military mind, these are major weaknesses. Palace intrigues, 100 generals, these are all very welcome signs. Because generalship, all these things, leadership and all matters. But that other piece of technology and capacity, I will put it like this. So actually, the Chinese are only 5 feet tall, what they are biologically.
True.
But what they do and what we make excuses and don't do makes them 8 feet tall. By what they do. And by what we don't do, they become 10 feet tall. तो ये जो छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हैं, हम क्यों नहीं सुधार सकते अपना IFA सिस्टम?
True.
हमारी फाइल इतनी टाइम क्यों लेती हैं? कोई कहता है साहब, you know, they are a autocracy, we are a democracy. I say open society, closed minds. Closed society, open minds. ये कौन सी चीज़ें हैं? तो अगर हम अपने ये ऐप ख़त्म कर दें, of course the Chinese are just 5 feet tall. So the argument is complicated. There could be social media fluff. There is a lot of weaknesses in their HR system. These are plus signs. But technologies, those things matter. Now, what is the final argument? The final argument is go to Ukraine. Ukraine में क्या हो रहा है? You have World War I trench warfare, blood and gore. You have Cold War legacy systems. But don't forget that cutting-edge technology is taking warfare to a new high. Look at dronery.
Drones, absolutely.
Now Chinese are known to be masters of drone, but not battle-proven. Not battle-proven.
Unless they're not giving their best to Pakistan and saving it for themselves.
Perhaps. I think they are. They won't give their best to them. And see, look at their whole design. This winning without fighting has to be seen. Let's take it to Taiwan. I gave you that data. 2/3 amphibious force, 42 brigades. वो कर क्या रहे हैं? रोज डरा रहे हैं. एक समय पे, hypothetically, Trump will ask Paparo, can you match him? Paparo will say, no. See, I'll give you a larger example, which has to be understood how these chaps do it. 1948, Mao is waiting to cross the Taiwan Strait. He says, यार 100 किलोमीटर है, 6 दिन लगेंगे, unopposed है, Taiwan will be ours. When he says that, the Americans send their 7th Fleet. He backs off. This is repeated in 58. This time the Americans threaten nuclear weapons. He again backs off. 1995, when again the Taiwan crisis happens, Bill Clinton sends 2 aircraft carriers. The Chinese back off for the 3rd time, but now they say A2AD, anti-excess area denial. उसके बाद आप देखो 10-15 साल, when they were making these missiles, Americans were writing articles how these missiles will miss the ships. Today, Paparo says, I cannot send my aircraft carriers into the first island chain because they will be destroyed. Now, if American power can't project into the first island chain, what does it do to the geopolitical outcomes?
Yeah.
And now you just see a very transactional Trump. If Trump is told that we will lose blood, शायद हम हारें, क्या ट्रम्प कमिट करेगा ताइवान में? I have my deep doubts. So winning without fighting, they haven't fought. Just by posturing, they have posed the question to the adversary कि boss surrender कर दो, क्यों लड़ रहे हो? This is the bigger worry. And the last time they fought in 79, they were a disaster in Vietnam.
They were given a bloody nose. In fact, I was reporting from Taiwan when that big threat happened, and when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. I was reporting from Taiwan, and I visited the island which is nearest to the Chinese mainland. So the Taiwanese army and the government, they insist that their policy of porcupine defense, they have so many missiles that we will take the Chinese down at least the first couple of waves of attacks. After that, will help come or not. But will Japan let that happen? Will other countries let that happen? And will America then meekly surrender even if, Taiwan has fought off the Chinese 2 rounds or 3 rounds.
So if you see the recent statements of Hexeth and Bridge Colby and all, it's very clear they have told Taiwan
Spend more.
10% of
10% of GDP.
Now, 10% is difficult.
Yeah.
So they have told them, spend 10%, we will see whether we come or not. They're leaving it ambiguous. With Japan, they are firm because they know that if Japan folds up, Korea folds up, then that is the end of American power. So I suspect they will come to the aid of, say, Japan, South Korea. Taiwan, there are question marks.
Very interesting.
Question marks. And see, why they may let Taiwan go but not Japan and South Korea? Because if Japan and South Korea fall, that will be like the Suez moment for USA.
Absolutely.
American power will collapse.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that Taiwan, question mark. So with India also they are hoping this. Ki bhai Pakistan ladega, Bangladesh. If you actually ask me, if I'm a non-military guy, what is the geopolitical risk of a full-fledged war with China? I'll say 2%. They're not going to fight.
They will make Bangladesh and Pakistan
Do
fight.
all this. But in a crisis now, see, look at the rocket force. If we know that 100,000 missiles are pointing at us, and we do not have AD, and we do not have that, what decision will you take? So I'm saying create the capacities. He will not fight. He will back off. He will back off and you can grow.
Yeah.
Hamari usme, unfortunately, what is the theory? Why spend? Now you cannot take care of China at 1.98% of
No,
your
you
GDP
cannot.
of
Yeah.
defense.
Like Maharana Pratap also needed Bhamashah to
Yes.
fight. We need our Bhamashahs right now.
So if we are sensible about this, China is not a threat. But sometimes we are not so sensible. That's the whole point.
No, I think with the strategic conversations and now in this interconnected world, there's realization. Now nobody will buy the Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, even if anybody tries to force it down our throat.
That is the new generation. The new generation, thankfully, is far wiser. It's not so innocent.
But
It's
I wish
not
they'd
so
stop
gullible.
buying the made in China equipment or everything made in China. I mean, we seem to still buy everything made in China, or we still want those Pakistani artists in our movies. I don't understand this at all. There is no Aman Ki Asha when they want to kill you. When their reason to exist is Ghazwa-e-Hind.
But see, in reality, what is the difficulty? So we've had 10 years of Make in India defense.
Yeah.
We have today about 100-150 drone companies. The tragedy is कि drone में 12 components हैं. 12 में से 11 are imported and 9 are imported from China. So that larger military industrial base has to come up. वो जो हमने, we have not let that base come up for decades, can't be changed overnight. This is our problem with China. Even in the military domain, we are so dependent.
Across the world, we need to kind of completely think how we can cut away from that. But on this discussion, that one line which always impresses me about Ramdhari Singh Dinkar is from Shakti and Kshama, which I'm told is also your favorite.
Yes.
Because Lord Ram also for 3 days, he kept requesting the ocean, give me way. And the ocean didn't. Now, the moment he pulled his bow and arrow, the ocean gave way and said how you can cross.
Gaurav, this point we were making about Western elites, our elites, look at their lack of clarity. And look at the clarity that Ramdhari Singh Dinkar has. He was just a street poet. Yeah. Just a street poet. But look at the clarity he had on diplomacy, statecraft, and all those
Absolutely.
issues. When he says, what is that? Shar mein hi basti hai
सच
deepti
पूछो तो शर में ही बसती है दीप्ति विनय की संधि वचन संपूज्य उसी का जिसमें शक्ति विजय की.
Common sense. So it's not
only the brave are respected.
No, obviously. And common sense, military power not to jackboot around the world, but precise, calibrated, technologically enabled military power. See, next time what should we do? We should not take out the brother-in-laws of Masood Azhar. Or his 4 wives. We should take out Masood Azhar himself. For that, you need even more refined capacities in space. So that is the kind of...
we need more low Earth orbiting satellites. That's where we need to focus. I will leave that for another day because that's again an area where India needs to focus a lot on. LEOs, we need to do that.
They're absent in the LEO. Absent.
The low Earth
Orbit.
orbiting.
All military capacities come only from the LEO.
Yeah.
Though I'm told some project is on, it'll take 5 to 6 years. But I say this year, yeah.
This year. They need to speed it up. But I want to end and General, thank you very much for joining me, sir. What an outstanding discussion with you. We can go on and on and on, but perhaps we'll leave
Great
that
pleasure,
for
Gaurav.
another day.
Thank you very much for having me over, and all the best to you once again.
Thank you very much, sir. And I want to end with that line of Ramdhari Singh Dinkar in Shakti and Kshama. क्षमा शोभती उस भुजंग को जिसके पास गरल है, उसको क्या जो विषहीन विष रहित विनीत सरल है. You have to be strong to be in a position to forgive, because nobody respects a weak person, a weak leader, or a weak country. And this we can see from our scriptures, our culture, our history, our civilizational history. Many thanks for watching.